Welcome and good morning, everyone, to the Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. We are coming together today in order for the purpose of considering confirmations, and then later on today we will be considering. We will have a work session. So to get started today, I'm going to ask the committee members to introduce themselves. Representative Geiger, would you kick it off?
Thank you, Senator Curry. Good morning. I'm Representative Valley Geiger, District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent House District 133. It's the Blue Hill Peninsula and includes Brooksville, Brooklyn, Blue Hill, Castine, Surrey, and Sedgwick.
No, it's me. Good morning. I'm Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the Senate.
Good morning. I'm Senator Scott Searway and represent District 16, which covers Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township.
Good morning. I'm Representative Jack Ducharme, House District 111, representing Madison, Solon, and Norridge Walk.
Good morning, Maine. I'm Representative Sue Austin, and I represent portions of Gray, Raymond, Casco, and all of Frye Island.
We're missing someone.
We are.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Representative Bailey.
Yeah. Kyle Bailey, Representative, House District 27, part of Gorham and Scarborough.
And Representative Roberts.
I am Representative Tiffany Roberts, representing House District 6, your House Chair, and it's comprised of the majority of North Berwick and South Berwick. Good morning.
And good morning. I'm Senator Chip Curry, and I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. This is a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business, as I've said, for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Ms. Lois Skilling of Brunswick for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Under the law and joint rules of the legislature, the committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chairs of the committee, we will then send written notice of the committee's recommendations to the president of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other person present who wishes to speak for or against the nomination. The meeting is currently being live streamed, as you can tell, on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can also be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has concluded. Pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statute, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative Roberts for the purpose of making such a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend the confirmation of Ms. Lois Skillings of Brunswick for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority.
Second.
A copy of the statutory requirements for this position is available at the rostrum. I think it's also available on the committee materials website, on our website under committee materials. At this point, the chair now recognizes, and I actually am not sure who is here from the governor's office. Is that Mr. Boucher?
Yeah.
Representative Mr. Boucher for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Good morning, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is Joe Bushy, and I'm the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here today on behalf of the governor to speak in support of the nomination of Lois Skillings of Brunswick for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. The Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority was established with the goal of facilitating the rapid development of the properties within the geographic boundaries of Brunswick Naval Air Station after it was recommended for closure by the Base Realignment and Closure Commission in 2005. Ms. Skillings has a bachelor's degree in nursing from the State University of New York and a master's degree in nursing administration and adult health from the University of Southern Maine. She began her career at Maine Medical Center, where she was a staff nurse on the surgical unit and has worked for several different hospitals throughout Maine. Starting in 1995, she began as the Vice President of Nursing and Patient Care Services and the Chief Nursing Officer at Midcoast Health Services. She remained with Midcoast Health Services until 2011 and became the President and Chief Executive Officer at Midcoast Parkview Health. Outside of her work, Ms. Skillings is a member of the Medical Mutual Insurance Company Board of Directors, the Hanley Center for Health Leadership Board of Directors, and the American Lung Association of Maine's Board of Directors. Ms. Skillings has also been a member of the Redevelopment Authority since 2011. On behalf of Governor Mills, I ask that you support the reappointment of Lois Skillings, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Chair would ask if any member of the committee has questions at this time.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions. Chair now recognizes Ms. Lois Skillings for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And Senator Curry and Representative Tiffany Roberts and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Commerce. My name is Lois Skillings of Brunswick, and I'm here today to discuss with you my nomination for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. It's been an honor to serve on this board since 2011 and to watch the growth and thriving economic development in the region as a result of the tremendous Mira team leading and delivering on goals set about following the announcement by the Navy to close the former Naval Air Station Brunswick. I don't think any of us anticipated the pace and extent of the success that has been achieved at Mira and how the success is supporting the local region and the state of Maine. For the past 10 years, I've served as president of Midcoast Hospital and the Midcoast Parkview Health System, now part of Maine Health, Maine's largest healthcare system. As the largest employer in Brunswick and one of the largest in our region, the economic health of our region has an impact on our ability to fulfill our nonprofit mission, attract and retain excellent healthcare professionals, the doctors and nurses and other healthcare team members who keep our community healthy. My deep ties to this community as a nurse in our organization for over 40 years and living in this region for most of my life give me a unique background in community relations. My service to various boards over the years has brought governance expertise and support to Mira, I hope. Thank you for this opportunity, and I so appreciate your consideration to continue this service for another term.
Thank you very much. Chair will now ask if any committee members have questions for the nominee. I have a question, Ms. Skillings. When over the last 11 or 10 years now that you've been serving on the Redevelopment Authority, what supports from the state have been most helpful?
I think one of the biggest supports that I have seen is having the commissioner from DCED be part of the board as well has been a big contribution through the years to ensure liaison between and among state economic development as well as local town and Mira's board as well.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Geiger. You're muted. Representative Geiger.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Jeez. After a year, you'd think this wouldn't happen, wouldn't you? Good morning. I just wanted to thank you, Skillings, for your service. And just to let you know, I was in the third Hanley 9-month leadership class. It was a profound and wonderful experience. I'm curious, just from your viewpoint, we've obviously heard from several different redevelopment schemes over this session. What do you think accounts for your success there? Because I was there recently and I was amazed at how much is going on that space.
Well, I would say it is a combination of several factors. One being that this region of Maine is a very desirable place to live and work and to have a business. And second, I would say the leadership of Mayor. We need to give a lot of credit to our executive director, Steve Livak, who has amazing vision and also the ability to execute. He gets things done and he really is able to move things forward in a way that creates a win-win-win solution. His philosophy of ensuring that we are rising the tides of all the boats in Maine has been so important, so that his philosophy of taking business from one part of Maine to another part of Maine is bad for Maine has also really helped to look outside of Maine to bring businesses and companies and other industry to this region. And I would say third is really just this community itself. I think all of Maine is special, and this community has a lot of community spirit, and there's been great collaboration, especially over the last many years, with the town of Brunswick and again, the state of Maine and Mayor to accomplish this goal.
Thank you so much.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Ms. Breton, is there anyone who is registered in order to speak?
No, there is not.
Okay. Thank you. All public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. We'll review any additional written materials. I think all committee members have received the written materials in advance. And we'll vote on the nomination to notify the president of Senate pursuant to Title III, MRSA Section 157, and the joint rolls. Let's see, taking the vote in accordance. The hearing by the Joint Standing, all right, so the hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for Ms. Lois Skillings of Brunswick for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority is, I'm sorry, I've skipped over it. That's closing it. So 1 second. No, the hearing is closed. We'll now take the vote. There we go. My apologies, Ms. Skillings. So the hearing, having heard all the comments and received the materials, the hearing is now closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take the vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing, unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, the chair will inquire whether any member present objects to proceeding to take the vote immediately. There are no objections? No objections. The pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that the nomination of Ms. Lois Skillings of Brunswick for the reappointment of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. In accordance with number 3 MRSA, Chapter 6, Section 157, with the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by the yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion of recommending confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? The committee clerk will call the roll.
I had the motion to confirm by Representative Roberts. I don't know who the second was.
The second was Representative Ducharme.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Representative Geiger.
Yes.
Representative Geiger, yes. Representative Andrews is absent. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Collmore is absent. Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Seaway.
Yes.
Senator Seaway, yes. Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme, yes. Representative Austin.
Yes, with continued good wishes.
Representative Austin, yes. Representative Hassenfuss.
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss, yes. Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Bailey, yes. Representative Bernard is absent. Representative Roberts?
Yes.
Representative Roberts, yes. Senator Curry?
Yes.
Senator Curry, yes. That is 10 in the affirmative, none in the negative, and 3 absent.
With 10 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business that the nomination of Ms. Lois Skillings of Brunswick for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. Excellent. If we were in chamber, we would all stand up and shake hands, but we are at different times now. Thank you so much, and we wish you well. So, and thank you for your service. We will now proceed to the nomination for Ms. Anne Marie Swenson. So, and please bear with me because there will be repeating the very similar text. So this is similar ground. So this is the public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Ms. Anne Marie Swenson of Scarborough for appointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Under the law and the joint rules of the legislature, the committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chairs of the committee, we will then send written notice of the committee's recommendation to the president of the Senate. Committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other persons present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. The meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel, and we have covered that, so I'm going to skip over. So pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statute, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative Roberts for the purpose of making such a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend confirmation of Ms. Anne Marie Swenson of Scarborough for appointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority.
And is there a second? Senator Searway is the second. So a copy of the statutory requirement for this position is available in the committee materials on our website. Chair now recognizes Mr. Bushy for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. Good morning once again. My name is Joe Bushy, and I'm the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here on behalf of the governor to speak in support of the nomination of Anne Marie Swenson of Scarborough as a new member of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Ms. Swenson has a bachelor's degree in business administration with concentrations in finance from the University of Vermont. She's since held a myriad of positions, including financial analyst at both General Electric and Genzyme Corporation, grants manager at South Middlesex Opportunity Council, development project officer at the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, and a senior vice president and manager of business banking at People's United Bank, and along with all those other experiences, owned and operated her own ice cream shop, Q's Ice Cream in Portland, Maine. Ms. Swenson has also become a certified economic development professional and was awarded the Women in Maine Business Leadership Award by the Sebago Lakes Chamber of Commerce. Currently, Ms. Swenson serves as Chief Financial Officer for Thornton Academy, is a member of the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce, and is a class facilitator and mentor for SCORE of Maine. Ms. Swenson has a rich history in economic development, which would make her an excellent nominee for the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. And on behalf of Governor Mills, I ask that you support the nomination of Anne Marie Swenson of Scarborough. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Chair would ask if any members of the committee has questions. Seeing no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bushy. Chair now recognizes Ms. Anne Marie Swenson for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Welcome.
Thank you. And good morning. Good morning, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. As you've heard, my name is Anne-Marie Swenson. I am from Scarborough, and I am here to discuss my nomination to the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. First, I'd just like to say I'm honored to be considered for this position. Moving the needle on economic development in Maine is a personal passion of mine. I had the pleasure of seeing my longtime dream of owning a homemade ice cream shop come true, and I enjoy helping other people open and grow businesses to achieve their goals. My background is diverse and includes significant business development, commercial banking, financial analysis, and economic development experience. I know that MRRA is seeking someone to serve on the board and specifically the Finance Committee, and I believe that I am a good fit for that role. I am excited about the opportunity to use my skills and experience to help continue the great success already achieved at MRRA, and I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. The chair would ask if any members of the committee has questions of the nominee. I have a question, and so
Okay.
I'm curious, given your amazing background in economic development, are there levers that you are particularly excited by, strategies that you see the state employing or would like to see the state employ more often to promote economic development?
In general, or
In general, yeah, like where are the opportunities that you're seeing given your wonderful background? I'd love to tap your wisdom for a moment during this appointment hearing.
Sure, there are so many, and I think, you know, in terms of where we are right now with so many small and mid-sized businesses struggling due to the various impacts of the pandemic. I know FAME has been very active out there, you know, helping the businesses, assisting the businesses in that way. We've seen some really great grant programs come through. There are so many ways that we could help. Senator Curry, I guess I would want more time to think that around on it. But I think one of the things that I always say when I'm working with businesses in Maine is that we are very, very fortunate in Maine to have a veritable alphabet soup of organizations and agencies out there specifically focused on helping businesses open and grow and succeed in Maine. And so again, I've put a great deal of my personal time and energy into that because I do believe it's so important. And if we can just move that needle in Maine a little bit, you know, Lois spoke about raising the tide for all ships. If we think about, you know, the bell curve of business success, if we move that needle just a little bit so that many more businesses fall over that top point into the success tier, it makes a difference for all of us, for all of the people in Maine, and makes it a more vibrant and healthy economy and place to live. So again, I think there are a number of great programs out there. There are always opportunities to improve, and I'd be happy to talk about that more at length going forward.
Well, thank you very much. Chair recognizes Representative Pebworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you and congratulations on your nomination. I'm curious about your experience with SCORE. And you have been working as a volunteer for folks looking for more information about small business and challenges.
Yes. Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about the nature of those conversations or those inquiries?
Sure. I don't know if anyone on this call has had the pleasure of meeting Nancy Stroney, who just stepped down in December. She had been the chapter chair for the Portland, Maine SCORE chapter for a number of years. And she really did a tremendous job of reinvigorating the organization and bringing in a lot of people like myself that are still employed full time. And Nancy likes to say that this is not your grandfather's SCORE, you know, and I know right now the statistic is that 40% of the mentors working with SCORE are not retired. And we have SCORE mentors that are even in their 20s. So Nancy in particular did a great job of recruiting people with the current needs or the skills that match the current needs that businesses face in terms of, you know, social media and marketing and that kind of thing too. So I serve as what's called a resource mentor. which means that I am not the full-time mentor for clients, but I am brought in when they have a specific need that I can help address. Usually it's something related to finance or funding the business. I also teach a class for SCORE in terms of how to create the financial projections for your business plan. It's a 3-hour class where we go through a 28-sheet spreadsheet workbook. I always tell people if you can endure that class, you can be successful at opening a business in Maine. But so really I serve as a resource mentor and then teach some classes for them. But I think it's a great organization. The services that SCORE provides are free to all Maine business owners and want to be business owners. They offer classes in a wide variety of topics. You know, what's the appropriate legal entity for your organization? Again, SEO maximization, how to create your business plan, all kinds of great resources. And I know moving forward, SCORE is also in very good hands, and there's a very robust list of mentors that are actively engaging with businesses in Maine.
That is really great to hear. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions. Chair would thank you very much, Ms. Anne-Marie Swenson.
Thank you.
The chair would now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Ms. Breton, is there anyone here who is looking to give testimony?
No, there is not, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. All public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. I'll remind everyone that their materials were sent to them in advance, and then we will vote on nomination and notify the president of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 of the Joint Rules. Vote must be taken within 35 days from the date the governor's written notice. The hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for Ms. Anne-Marie Swenson of Scarborough for appointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority is closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take a vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, the chair will inquire whether any member present objects to proceeding to take the vote immediately. Seeing no objections, the pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that nominations of Ms. Anne-Marie Swenson of Scarborough for appointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, with the Joint Standing and with the Joint Standing Rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by the yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion to recommend confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? Clerk will now call the roll.
Okay. I have the motion to confirm, motion made by Representative Roberts, seconded by Senator Seaway. Representative Geiger.
Yes.
Representative Geiger, yes. Representative Andrews. Absent. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Collmore. Absent. Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Seaway.
Yes.
Senator Seaway, yes. Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme, yes. Representative Austin.
Yes, good luck.
Representative
you.
Austin, yes. Representative Hassenfuss.
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss, yes. Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Bailey, yes. Representative Bernard. Absent. Representative Roberts.
Yes.
Representative Roberts, yes. Senator Curry.
Yes.
Senator Curry, yes. That's 10 in the affirmative, none in the negative, and 3 absent.
Having 10 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business that the nomination of Ms. Anne-Marie Swenson of Scarborough for appointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority has been confirmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations, and thank you for your service. Outstanding. Mr. Mansour, is it Mansour or how do you pronounce your last name?
Moncure.
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 Moncure. Thank you very much. I didn't want to go through the first part of this getting it wrong. So we'll now open the public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Mr. John Moncure of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Under the law and joint rules of the legislature, the committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chairs of the committee, we will then send written notice to the committee's recommendation to the president of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other persons present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. Pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the main statute, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative Roberts for the purpose of making such a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend confirmation of Mr. John Moncure of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority.
Is there a second? Second from Representative Ducharme. Thank you very much. A copy of the statutory requirements for this position are available in the committee's materials. The chair now recognizes Mr. Bushy for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Thanks again, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. I am Joe Bushy, the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here today on behalf of the governor to speak in support of the nomination of John Moncure of Harpswell as a member of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Mr. Moncure is a graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy and the New York University School of Law. He's been admitted to the New York Bar in 1967, the District of Columbia Bar in 1968. Served 3 years of active duty in the Navy Judge Advocate General Corps and remained in the active reserves before retiring with the rank of captain after 30 years of service. After leaving active duty, Mr. Peters entered the United States Department of Justice, where he served as a trial attorney for a few years before entering private practice. Outside of his law practice, Mr. Moncure has been a member of the Harpswell Conservation Commission, Brunswick Area Chamber of Commerce, Brunswick Rotary, Midcoast Parkview Hospital, Topsom Development Incorporation, and also a volunteer assistant coach at Bowdoin College for over 30 years. Between his professional experience, civic engagement, and 12 years of service on the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority, he remains a great asset to the authority. On behalf of Governor Mills, I ask that you support the reappointment of John Moncure of Harpswell and be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Bushy.
Thank you.
Chair would ask if any member of the committee has questions for Mr. Bushy at this time. Seeing none.
Thanks.
The chair now recognizes Mr. John Moncure for the purpose of making a statement concerning his nomination. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, members of the Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business Committee. I have to read it. It's my pleasure to once again be before you for consideration of renomination. I first served on the original MIRA board, and the reason for my original appointment was that I was so familiar with the Navy and also with economic development. My practice concerned mostly commercial transactions. In my 50-year legal career, I've drafted many of the leases on the properties out at the Mirror property. And I've handled many of the purchase and sales. And I represent a developer who is probably the most successful developer out there in developing buildings and attracting good tenants. I think that I probably was nominated because of the combination of my commercial practice and my Navy background. But it has been a source of great joy watching the success out there, and also serving with Lois and John. And I look forward to serving with Anne Marie. She outqualifies me on economic matters, but that's fine. I'm learning all the time. You all have my resume and have heard it over and over. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but that's basically my background.
Thank you very much. The chair would ask if any member of the committee has questions of the nominee. Seeing no questions, and very appreciative of your service and your willingness to continue serving. Thank you very much, Mr. Moncur. One more time with your, yeah, I'm butchering the last part of your name. So Moncur, right?
Right,
correct?
right.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. So Chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Ms. Breton, is there anyone in the attendee list who would wish to speak?
No, there is not, Senator.
Thank you very much. All public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. Everyone has received the written materials, and I'm very appreciative of the narrative form of the resume. And so everyone has received the materials. A vote on the nomination and notify. We will vote on the nomination and notify the president of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 in the joint rules. The vote must be taken within 35 days from the date of the governor's written notice. The hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for Mr. John Moncur of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority is now closed. In accordance with the law and the committee, the committee may not take a vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing, unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, the chair will inquire whether any member present objects to proceeding to take the vote immediately. Any objection? Seeing none. Pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that the nomination of Mr. John Moncur of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by the yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion to recommend confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? The committee clerk will call the roll.
Okay, so I have a motion to confirm. Motion made by Representative Roberts, seconded by Representative Ducharme. Representative Geiger.
Yes.
Representative Geiger, yes. Representative Andrews, absent. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Collmore is absent. Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Seaway.
Yes.
Senator Seaway, yes. Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme, yes. Representative Austin.
Yes, continued good work.
Representative Austin, yes. Representative Hassenfuss.
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss, yes. Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Bailey, yes. Representative Bernard. I knew she was here, but Representative
President
Robert.
Bernard, are you there? It appears not.
Nope.
She's
Representative.
bouncing between two committees, that's why.
Oh, okay. Representative Roberts.
Yes.
Representative Roberts, yes. Senator Curry.
Yes.
Senator Curry, yes. That would be 10 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 3 absent.
10 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business that the nomination of Mr. John Moncure of Harpswell be, for reappointment of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. Thank you very much for your continued service.
Thank you.
Sorry, again, sorry we can't be in person to shake hands.
Yeah.
So I believe this is our last.
Could I add one thing?
Sure,
I wanted to add that it's been my pleasure to have run in many road races, marathons and so forth, and finish behind Louis Lucchini in all of them.
I'll look for you next time.
Those days are gone, unfortunately. Along with my knee.
Yeah.
He was not standing there cheering for you as you came through across the line.
No, he's home taking a shower.
Yeah. My joints are struggling these days. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now open up the public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Mr. John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Under law and the joint rules for the legislature, the committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chairs of the committee, we will then send written notice of the committee's recommendation to the President of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other persons present who wish to speak for or against the motion. The nomination. Excuse me. This meeting, let's see, pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statutes, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the committee, the chair recognizes Representative Roberts for the purpose of making such motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend confirmation of Mr. John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority.
Second.
Second, Representative Roberts' motion, second by Senator Searway. A copy of the statutory requirements for this position are available in the committee materials on the website. Chair now recognizes the governor's representative, Mr. Bushy, for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning once again, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, distinguished members of the committee. For the last time today, my name is Joe Bushy, and I'm the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here today on behalf of the governor to speak in support of the nomination of John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. Mr. Peters has bachelor's and master's degrees in economics from the University of Maine. He's had a pretty varied career, starting as a senior staff economist for Central Maine Power in the 70s, working as a special assistant to former Governor James Longley, and working at the Maine Public Utilities Commission as the director of their finance division. He's also been vice president of Maine and New Hampshire for NGL Energy Partners and a consultant for Eaton Peabody before retiring in 2015. Currently, he serves on the board of directors for Norway Savings Bank and has been the chair of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority for 5 years. His knowledge of Maine government, MIRA, and economics in general make him an excellent contributor to the board. On behalf of Governor Mills, I ask that you support the reappointment of John Peters of Harpswell. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. And if you have none, thank you for indulging all of our nominations today.
Chair would ask if any member of the committee has a question for Mr. Bushy at this time. Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair now recognizes Mr. John Peters for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, members of, and I'm not even going to try to read it, John. I'm just going to call it the Idea Committee. And I will be the first one to admit I'm surprised that no one has made a reference to the fact that today is April Fool's Day. And here I am, the last member, the last candidate for your approval. I am a native Mainer. Representative Searway, Senator Searway, I was born and raised in Waterville. I'm a second generation American, second generation Mainer. My wife is about a sixth generation Mainer. We were very fortunate that we were able to raise our children, have a very rewarding career in Maine, and continue to reside there. I have been in the Greater Brunswick area for the last 40 years, 20 of it in Brunswick and the last 20 in Harpswell. So Maine is very dear to me. Two of our three children have come back to Maine. In fact, our oldest son and his family live in Yarmouth. He's the managing partner of a commercial real estate firm in San Francisco and commutes 1 week a month to San Francisco so that he can live, his family can live in Maine, and they're willing to make that sacrifice. So Maine is indeed very dear to me. This will be my third and likely last term as a trustee of the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. I think the new blood that Ms. Swenson brings is probably a welcome addition, and I will intend to make room for yet another one at the end of this term if I am approved. I'm not being so bold as to be presumptive. I spent the last 30 years of my career and the last 10 as president of Down East Energy Corporation, a fairly large employer in the Brunswick and central southern Maine area, and was president when the Navy announced that the Brunswick Naval Air Station was going to close. That happened in 2005, as you've heard. The Navy did not vacate the premises until 2010. So the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority has only had the last 10 years to really do its thing. Let me highlight some of the numerous accomplishments that our executive director, Steve Levesque, and his staff have accomplished. The first thing that I will cite as a business person is we paid off a $3 million note to the Navy immediately after the interest grace period expired and before interest began to accrue. I think that was a great decision on behalf of MIRA. As of the end of January, there are 1,870 full-time employees, 150 private and public entities on campus, 337 part-time employees, and more than $700 million has been invested, and there's another $100 million in the pipeline. MIRA and its tenants pay the towns of Harpswell and Popsam over $3.1 million in property taxes, which is 3 times what the Navy was providing as a subsidy to the school departments. Perhaps the most impressive accomplishment is Tech Place, which opened in 2015 as an incubator. There are currently 42 businesses in Tech Place, more than 100 employees, and after a $4 million investment in improvements to the facility, tenants can and do collaborate on projects. We've had a number of tenants grow, exceed their needing additional space, have graduated from Tech Place to other facilities on the property. So I think that MIRA is now a mature business and facing some of the challenges that mature businesses face. As we were growing, my colleagues John and Lois will recall, as we were growing, everything was rosy, and then we began to experience some of the pitfalls that mature lessors with respect to bad debt and unpaid rent face, we've achieved, I think, we have overcome those obstacles. The Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority is on a very sound financial footing now, and Ms. Swenson will be happy to know, particularly if you join the Finance Committee. We have cash. We have a great board. I was fortunate to be able to succeed my friend, John Moncure, as chair for a period of time, and now the board is led by a very capable person by the name of Rita Armstrong. So with that, I hope you will approve my reappointment. I would dearly love to serve one more term, and I thank you for your time and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. Chair will now ask if any members of the committee has questions of the nominee. Chair recognizes Representative Bedworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Peters. I think the sign of a good leader is someone who anticipates questions and answers them. I was really looking for that timeline, and that was really helpful. I'm curious what you would consider one of your best successes in your time of being chair.
Well, I would not characterize it as my success. I would characterize it as a success of the organization, administration, and board. We were faced with a tenant, unfortunately, that left us with a very large bad debt, a 7-figure bad debt. And despite what some may think, we're not funded by tax revenue. We do not get a subsidy from the state of Maine on a regular basis. We do get some JTIF money. Our staff has been successful at achieving a number of, receiving a number of grants, but we had to overcome that 7-figure bad debt and make sure that we were still on a sound footing. We have done that. The administration has done that. With the help and assistance of members of the board, we found ways to do that without having to eliminate staff. And I'm sure Lois and others who have run businesses would agree with me that if one can do that and not have to reduce staff, it is a success. But that success comes from a collaboration of everyone and not just myself.
Thank you.
Mr. Peters, 5 years down the road, what do you hope gets accomplished? Or what's the vision down 5 years in the future?
5 years down the road, I fully expect that the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority, its role will be as a gatekeeper. I firmly believe that with the succession plan that we have in place for a new executive director, that the success, the track record will continue. We do have a couple of things to accomplish in that period of time, but I believe by that, the end of 5 years, and my colleague John Moncure, who's the chair of the redevelopment committee, would know better than I, most of the property will have been either leased or sold. And then Miro will just be the ongoing operator of the airport and the properties that, the lessor of the properties that it currently has responsibility for. But the velocity at which the properties are being developed has just been amazing, and it continues to accelerate. And I would encourage John, if he disagrees with that or agrees with it, to comment.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I think, you know, what we do has changed from the beginning. We were a developer, and as he said, we're going to be a gatekeeper, because it will eventually, within 5 years, everything will be occupied out there.
Thank you very much. Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Senator Curry. Just a question about your future plans. I know that you inherited some military housing that a very young friend in his 20s of my family has just moved into and is thrilled to be there. I'm wondering if you have plans toward an increase in mixed use and more housing on the site. As you know, housing in the Midcoast is at an all-time low in terms of availability and affordability.
Well, Representative, the choice is not necessarily ours. Our role is to find and attract private investment. We did have the opportunity, we thought, to develop another 140 acres or 40 acres of 140 that we just received back from Bowdoin College, somewhat circuitously. We did have, in that planning, did have some workforce housing, I guess it's termed today, included. But the town has decided to purchase that property from us, and that plan has gone by the wayside. We do have in that $100 million number that I talked about earlier in the pipeline, I believe there is additional housing. We're opening, a developer is opening, is it 100 apartments, John, on Admiral Lois, on Admiral Fitch, momentarily, or it's ongoing, I guess. There are plans to continue to develop some property. The housing that we received in what was known as the Cape Heart section of the Brunswick Naval Air Station at McKean Street is completely sold out. That we did not participate in. Again, our role is to find developers. We will not develop the property ourselves, and I hope that answers your question. But housing is part of our mission, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Peters. Seeing no other questions, Chair will now take comments from persons attending the hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Ms. Breton, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in the attendee list?
No, there is not, Senator.
All public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. I'll remind everyone has had Mr. Peters' information, questionnaire, and resume delivered to them via email. We will vote on the nomination to notify the President of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 of the joint rules that the vote must be taken within 35 days from the date of the governor's written notice. The hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business for Mr. John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority is closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take a vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, the chair will inquire whether any member present objects to proceeding to take the vote immediately. Seeing none. The pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that the nomination for Mr. John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by the yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against motion to recommend confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? The committee clerk will call the roll.
So I have a motion to confirm by Representative Roberts, seconded by Senator Seaway. Representative Geiger.
Yes.
Representative Geiger, yes. Representative Andrews, absent. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Collmore, absent. Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Seaway.
Yes.
Senator Seaway, yes. Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme, yes. Representative Austin. We'll see if she comes right back. Representative Hassenfuss.
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss, yes. Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Bailey, yes. Representative Bernard? Still seems to be absent. Representative Roberts?
Yes.
Representative Roberts, yes. Senator Curry?
Yes.
Senator Curry, yes. Is Representative Austin available?
Appears not.
It appears not. So that will give us 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 4 absent.
9 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business that the nomination of Mr. John Peters of Harpswell for reappointment to the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority be confirmed. Thank you. Thank you very much for your continued service. Yes, we appreciate it very much.
Well, congratulations
My
to you all.
pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Bushy. Appreciate it. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Senator Curry. I may actually be emailing you later today about something related to your district. If you want to look for that, feel free.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Committee members, we're going to take a break for about 5 minutes, and then we will return to pick up a work session. So if we could take a break for 5 minutes, we'll come back and pick up our work
Thank you
session.
all.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be back in 5. Welcome back. If I could check in to see who's with us. Thank you. Welcome back to the Committee on Innovation Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. We're going to open up the work session now on LD 730, enact to protect economic competitiveness in Maine by extending the end date for the Pine Tree Development Zone benefits. So it's my understanding as I recall, we got a lot of reports on this, and we have a number of people who are in the attendee list who we've got some expertise. So you'll have a strong benefit of being able to treat this like a briefing and learn a lot about this program. We're going to start out with Ms. Olson with her bill analysis. So welcome, Ms. Olson.
Good morning, everybody. Okay. I sent out a variety of materials over the last 2 days. Many of them are quite comprehensive, so I'm going to do my best not to read directly from them, as you should have them available for closer inspection. But I will go over a couple of the larger points about the program, and in particular the 2 OPEGA reviews the committee requested more information on as well. Is it still the desire of the committee to have me share my screen?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So today we're considering LD 730, which is an act to protect economic competitiveness in Maine by extending the end date for Pine Tree Development Zone benefits. So what this bill does is it changes the date after which a qualified Pine Tree Development Zone business in a Tier 1 location may not be certified from currently December 31st of 2021 to December 31st of 2024. And it also then changes the date of that all Pine Tree Development Zone benefits are terminated from December 31st, 2031 to December 31st, 2034, which is a 10-year span. And then it makes the corresponding changes in the several sections of law that are related to the Pine Tree Development Zone program. I've listed those who spoke in favor and against. No one was neither for nor against here, and all of their testimony is available online if you'd like to refer back to their points. So a little overview about the Pine Tree Development Zone program. It was established in 2003. It includes 10 different benefits and is administered by DECD, but it has specific program benefits that are administered by the Maine Revenue Service, the Public Utilities Commission, and Efficiency Maine Trust. So there are a variety of players involved in administering and the different benefits that are available. That split, about 5 come from the state and about 5 come from those outside entities. And you can see more about that in the OPEGA report from 2017. As an overview of the program, participating businesses that create at least one new quality job in Maine receive a number of tax and cost reductions. Businesses must be for-profit and engaged in qualified business activity in one of the program's targeted sectors. And again, you can take a look at those targeted sectors as well as the sort of what makes it a quality job it's detailed very nicely in the OPEGA reports. They also, a couple of examples of what makes it a quality job is that the job or the business, has to provide employees a retirement plan, a group health insurance plan, and salaries in excess of program minimums. Finally, they're also required to provide a signed statement certifying that they would not go forward with their expansion or location project in Maine absent the program's benefits. We heard about this during the public hearing. This is commonly referred to as the but-for requirement. And I also linked information regarding the 2021 but-for letter that's available to applicants on DEC. I think it's DECD's website and not Maine Revenue Service. I think it's DECD. There were some requests around data during the public hearing. Unfortunately, we didn't hear very much specific data. We heard many anecdotal pieces of data, but DECD was able to provide more information following the public hearing. In particular, we have calendar year's 2019 legislative report. That's a list of qualified businesses and the benefits received by the Pine Tree Development Zone businesses. It also includes aggregate financial data. We also had the specific 2019 data provided as well. And I was able to find in the files for IDEA from past years a Pine Tree Maine Revenue Service annual report from October of 2019. I believe that for a brief period of time, this was statutorily required, but then this element was repealed. So I don't believe that Maine Revenue Service is still issuing that type of report. So I have to, I don't know if it's an apology, but I'll just note that at the time of creating the bill analysis, I wasn't able to find specific data on these on successful programs in other states. I was able to take a look at what type of programs might exist, or particularly ones that were able to report an evaluation or some type of review on their programs. But I did have one of the researchers in our office look more into that, and she was able to pull data and put that together in a research memo, which was shared with the committee this morning. And in particular, she noted that there were 41 states and the District of Columbia, which all allow enterprise zones. 5 states have repealed or expired previous programs. And our researcher looked particularly at 3 states, Connecticut, Indiana, and Maryland, all of which have done reviews or analysis of the effectiveness of their programs. And that information was shared here. There's quite a lot of information to look at, but if you're sort of interested, Connecticut being sort of in our region, if you will, and then Indiana and Maryland as well. And I noted, of course, Maryland's program. So there are many states that offer this type of information, or this type of program, excuse me. She also summarized an article that she found. It's about academic articles and reports on enterprise zones all across the nation in terms of who's offering them, what are the outcomes of those programs, and kind of looking at the different data collection. And I will just note as well that one of the big takeaways from a lot of these reports that I also viewed was the element of data collection and effective program management, which we'll talk about in just a moment, that comes out of the OPEGA reports as well. It was mentioned during the public hearing about 2 different OPEGA reports on the Pine Tree Development Zone. The first one was in 2017. The 127th Legislature's Government Oversight Committee directed OPEGA to review the Pine Tree Development Zone program. They had a list of evaluation questions, but one of the big takeaways of the 2017 report is that many of those questions went unanswered due to a shortage of readily available program data. At the time of the 2017 report, the Pine Tree Development Zone tax program was set to sunset in 2018. So OPEGA made the decision not to pursue obtaining that data, as it would have been quite onerous. And as you can see here, it would have required many different groups compiling data, which wouldn't not have made sense given the length of time the program still had. So a couple of answers went unanswerable, and particularly it was unclear exactly if those who were intended to benefit were actually benefiting from the program, whether the program was achieving its purpose or goals, and whether or not this program was effective compared to similar programs within the state, or if the program itself didn't exist, would we see the same results? And whether this was a cost-effective use of Maine resources. So I just like to note that's not to say that they found that those things were not being achieved, just that there was no data to answer those questions. So the review offered 4 recommendations. in 2017 that if there was legislative interest in extending the Pine Tree Development Zone, that program outcomes should be fully addressed and design weaknesses should also be addressed. They noted that the Maine Revenue Service should include enhanced information about Pine Tree Development Zone benefits in future biennial tax expenditure reports to improve transparency. There was a note that DECD should notify all entities that administer Pine Tree Development Zone benefits when a business is decertified, because there were so many groups involved in the 10 benefits. So that there's sort of a lack of information, often hard to follow up. So that information shared with the different entities could create a more effective use of the program. And then lastly, and I think the big one that the committee had at the end of the public hearing is about additional data that it should be captured and made more accessible. And again, that's if the legislature desires a full analysis of the Pine Tree Development Zone costs and outcomes with the idea of extending, continuing, or revising the program. So following the OPEGA report in 2017 from the 127th legislature, the 128th and 129th legislature made subsequent changes to the Pine Tree Development Zone program. As a result of those changes, in August of 2019, again, the Government Oversight Committee directed OPEGA to conduct a limited scope review because of these changes that were made to the program. In particular, one of those changes was an extension from December 31st, to December 31st, 2021, as it is currently in statute. Those changes are Public Law 2017, Chapter 440, and were a result of LD 1654, which I believe is very similarly titled. We can take a look. Those took effect in July of 2018. And as you can see, that bill made many changes. And those changes were based off of the information and the recommendations that were made in the 2017 OPEGA report. So the changes to the program were that the program now more clearly stated its goal or goals. In particular, the goals stated are job creation and retention. There were two other goals that the OPEGA report had identified as potentially being too broad and too difficult to determine effectiveness on. And so the focus of the program was narrowed to job creation and retention. It established new certification requirements. DECD now issues a certificate of qualification once the commissioner has verified that the business has added at least one qualifying employee. It also requires new data to be gathered from Pine Tree Development Zone participants annually. And again, if you were to visit the DECD website, you would find information around the reporting that businesses now are required to do. That includes number of employees hired, employees hired within the year, estimated aggregate Pine Tree Development Zone benefits that were received or claimed that year. And then this was noted during the public hearing. DECD did begin to collect this new data in the spring of 2019. They're also working on implementing a new database to streamline that data collection and to make reporting more efficient. That also includes updates to the data collection within the Maine Revenue Service as well. Those have been significantly delayed due to the pandemic. And DECD spoke about this. I believe they are still working on it, but they didn't have a date set for full implementation. They amended the but-for requirement to require it to be notarized. This is frequently noted as often required, but difficult to determine if it actually has any teeth. So the notarizing element was supposed to do that, is supposed to do that. And then there's also increased reporting to the legislature. And so that is in statute. The law requires DECD to report annually to the legislature the names of the Pine Tree Development Zone businesses, the aggregate benefits, and aggregate information for the three most recent years. And you can see what they're required to report. And as I said, it also included updates to the Maine Revenue Service that were supported in part because those updates will allow better tracking of Pine Tree Development Zone data and other tax incentive data. The limited scope review reached a couple of conclusions as well, as all reviews do. So the following The 2017 report, it notes that the Pine Tree Development Zone program now has clarified the program's goals on job creation and retention. The amended design ensures that benefits will mostly be provided only to businesses that create and retain at least one quality job, and requiring the notarization of the but-for statements. Again, they don't guarantee that the Pine Tree Development Zone is actually resulting in more quality job creation and retention. That would have happened, but it did strengthen those elements. Of note, and this came out in a couple of the different reports and analyses of these types of programs across the nation, that proactive program management could support strengthened oversight and help ensure Pine Tree Development Zone is effective. It also noted, as was again brought up during the public hearing, about the connection between the Pine Tree Development Zone and the Maine statewide strategic plan. Pine Tree Development Zone does not speak specifically to the actions outlined in the plan, and there's not a clear direct line between the two, although there is an indirect connection between the goals of the Pine Tree Development Zone program and the strategic plan. And of note, there was no specific mention in the most recent December 2020 Maine Economic Recovery Committee's report of the Pine Tree Development Zone. No direct note. I didn't read the full report, so if there's an indirect note, I wasn't aware of it, but it was not directly noted. So I've included, again, a variety of documents to help answer some of the questions that came up just about who's involved, who's a tier 1 or tier 2 site. There was some note of those, a couple of locations in York and Cumberland that are able or are eligible. And those are the 2 counties that are excluded now at this point. There were no specific amendments brought up during the public hearing. The flaws and design weaknesses were mentioned, and it was discussed that there may be some changes that could be made, similar to what was done in the 128th and 129th. In particular, there were questions around whether the committee might consider something like a review of the changes and the comprehensive work that's being done, particularly as many of those changes that were implemented prior to the pandemic were stalled as a result of the pandemic. And so are the DECD, Maine Revenue Service, and others may not be in the same place that they would have been if things had not stalled out. And then this was also mentioned, and I just wanted to bring it up and kind of connect the two. The Employment Tax Increment Financing, or ETIF program, was also mentioned during the public hearing. It's also mentioned in the 2017 and 2020 OPEGA reports. In the OPEGA 2017 review, both DECD staff and stakeholders report that the expanded ETIF benefit, so Pine Tree Development Zone businesses can have an 80% benefit. That's an expansion of the more tiered system under a regular ETIF situation. That is considered the most valuable and most used part of the Pine Tree Development Zone benefit. Nearly all businesses certified under the Pine Tree Development Zone program use the ETIF benefit, and nearly all those receiving ETIF benefits are Pine Tree Development Zone certified. So it should be noted that if certifications under the Pine Tree Development Zone cease after 2021 without changes to either the Pine Tree Development Zone or ETIF statutes, the 80% ETIF benefit rate will phase out as existing Pine Tree Development Zone certifications expire. Sorry, that's a typo. It should say after 10 years, not 19. My apologies, that's a pretty big difference. And then the differentiated benefit rates for ETIF would become effective again. So a lot of information there. I'm happy to answer questions that the committee may have about the different programs or the research that was put forward. And I will stop sharing at this point.
Select questions for Ms. Olson. Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Senator Curry. Ms. Olson, I wonder if you have sort of overarching data how much this program costs the state and municipalities, how many businesses, so how much money per business, and how many jobs generated from that?
I do believe that some of that data was put forward. If you looked at the calendar year, I don't have this sort of across, like, since the program started in 2003, I don't have that data. Again, largely because that data, I think, wasn't being effectively collected. We do have in the calendar year legislative report that was put forward information, and I think it's something like 100 and I'm going to misspeak, so let me just go ahead and open it. If we take a look at this, let's see here, for the total estimated aggregate amount of Pine Tree Development Zone benefits received by qualified Pine Tree Development Zone businesses who filed a Pine Tree Development Zone report in 2020 for the 2019 year was $24,670,739. And if you looked at aggregate information for the last 3 years, employment levels for all Maine employee were 84,292. Salary and wages, $4,243,319,157. The average annual salary and wages and access to health insurance and retirement benefits for all Maine employees, that was at $50,341. And again, that's for 17, 18, and 19 compiled, so the average of those years.
Ms. Wilson, the data you're giving on jobs and income is not relevant to these businesses. It's for Maine as a whole?
For all Maine employees are. For these businesses, employment levels for qualified Pine Tree Development Zone employees were 23,461, 1.2 billion and change for salary and wages for Pine Tree Development Zones. So about a quarter of the overall average. The salary for Pine Tree Development Zone employees is 51,705. So a little bit more than $1,000 above the average. And investments associated with qualified Pine Tree Development Zone businesses are just over 1 billion. And if you looked at this, this doesn't give an average, but in 2017, there were 157 certified companies, 172 in 2018, and 180 in 2019. And I believe we did have 2019 data, 180.
And just one final question, Ms.
Sure.
Olson. The 24.6 million that flowed to these businesses, does that include the TIF benefits that went to them that didn't go to the towns?
I don't know if that included that. You'll have to inquire DECD who submitted that information. It doesn't specifically say if that includes those ETIF benefits or if those are separate. They're very intricately linked in how they're administered, so it's possible, but I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
And we may have someone in the waiting room that can address that.
Yeah, I believe Miss Mace is available.
So why don't we go ahead and ask Miss Mace to come in? I'm sure there might still be questions for Ms. Olson. Ms. Breton, can you make that happen?
She should be coming right in.
Thank you.
And you do have other people from Opega and stuff in the waiting room as well.
Great. Welcome, Ms. Mace. We have a specific question. Representative Geiger, did you want to ask your question again regarding the benefits there?
Sure, I'll attempt to do that. My question was to get an overall sense of the numbers. So how many businesses, how much money spent by the state of Maine or the municipalities versus how many jobs were created? particularly because it seems like one quality job is a very low bar.
Thank you, Representative Geiger. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. I just wanted to first address the question that you had just brought up about the lost revenue, if you will, to the towns. And I just wanted to make an important distinction between the ETIF program and the MTIF. So ETIF, or Employment Tax Increment Financing, means that the businesses get back all of the employees' state withholding. So it actually doesn't involve the town. A lot of people think that the ETIF is the most valuable part of the Pine Tree Development Zone program, because when you're enrolled as a Pine Tree Development Zone certified business, you're automatically enrolled in that ETIF program. So the companies get back all their employees' state withholding. So that's the ETIF program. And then MTIF is an entirely different sort of mechanism to help new businesses get started by establishing certain parts of their town as TIF districts. And that's where the town forgoes that tax revenue to help the business get started. And that's very individual to the town and the townships as to how they do that MTIF process. So I just wanted to make that distinction between ETIF and MTIF.
Thank you very much. I did not know that.
You're welcome.
The question, Representative Geiger, you had a question about, I just want to make sure it was answered. A question about the expense side of it. There were a $24 million number was included, and your question was, did that include the ETIF support, or was that was ETIF separate? Ms. Mace, can you address that?
Yeah, I would defer to Ms. Olson on that one because she has the numbers right in front of her. I certainly can find out about that $24 million number, whether or not that includes the ETIF benefits.
Okay, great. Are there other questions at this point for Ms. Mace? And I don't see any. I just want to be clear who's in our waiting room. We have a representative from OPEGA. Representative Roberts, can you let us, and thank you very much for Representative Roberts, did a bunch of work to bring people in for this session for us. And who else is with us today?
I believe you have Carrie and Lucia Nixon, who's the director from OPEGA. And then you have two other people who spoke on the bill, Linda Cabrera and Peter Del Greco.
Good, excellent. So does the committee, do one of the committee members have a preference? Who would, why don't we invite representatives from OPEGA into the committee? Hello and welcome. And I'm not sure which of you will be speaking. So who would like to address our questions regarding kind of the history of the OPEGA report and with this? Is that Ms. Nixon?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having us today. We're happy to answer questions that you have about the OPEGA reports. As I don't know how familiar all of you are with OPEGA and the work that we do and how it intersects. We are another nonpartisan office of the legislature, just like the office that Rachel works for. And we serve one particular legislative committee, which is the Government Oversight Committee, that has a somewhat different function than the policy committees in that their chief role is to conduct oversight and accountability and program evaluations in particular to help the legislature assess the operations of state government agencies. And one of the specific assignments or focus of the GOC in the statute is to perform an ongoing evaluation of tax expenditures, including tax incentives such as the Pine Tree Development Zones. And so the work that we've done in the Pine Tree Development Zones fits into that broader framework that OPEGA has, which is to provide research and evaluation and background to assist the legislature in being informed about how various tax incentives are operating. As Ms. Olson noted, and you have received, OPEGA has done 2 different reports related to Pine Tree development zones over the past few years. First, we did what we call a full evaluation. There are 32 tax incentives in the state law, or there's hundreds, but there are 32 that are subject to what we call a full evaluation. And Pine Tree Zones was actually the second that OPEGA did out of the 32. We've now done 6 of the 32. We have them all on a cycle that ultimately, over time, the expectation is that it would cycle around and other programs will come back up. But Pine Tree Zones was one of the very first, and it's been very well described in Ms. Olson's memo and presentation. She did an excellent job of describing what the outcomes of that report were and how it then led to some follow-up work that the Government Oversight Committee asked OPEGA to do to look at the changes that were made in the 128th and 129th legislature and assess the current status of the program. One thing that I'll just note up front is that the OPEGA delivered that second report in November of 2020, and due to the pandemic and the changeover from the 128th to the 129th, the Government Oversight Committee actually had its work session on that report in February, so about a month ago, and also received public comment at that time. And what the GOC tends to do, that committee is not dealing with bills, so what they're doing is dealing with reports and requests for reviews. And so coming out of that work session, the Government Oversight Committee decided that what they wanted to do is to do some ongoing monitoring, and the Government Oversight Committee sent a letter to DECD to ask for information on 4 questions, and they are awaiting a report back, which the GOC asked DECD to report back in mid-April. And those 4 questions, there are two of the questions are issues that have come up in Ms. Olson's presentation. 2 are looking at the strategic plan for economic development of the state and asking DECD to provide the GOC with some information on how Pine Tree Development Zone program aligns with that strategic plan. And also secondly, how DECD is using the strategic plan and the Governor's Economic Recovery Committee final report to revive weakened sectors of the economy, and how Pine Tree Development Zones fits into that. And the 2 other questions that the Government Oversight Committee had for DECD at this time, the one was about the but-for provision that Ms. Olson spoke about. And the question, it was strengthened by adding the notarization, but there still were some questions and issues brought up in the public hearing and work session at the GOC about whether there may be other opportunities to strengthen that. And so was asking DECD to report back on that. And finally, asking DECD to report back on these issues about program management and oversight, and how can the DECD use data collection and other tools to provide sort of that, as Ms. Olson mentioned, proactively engaging and making sure you have the data and reporting it to the legislature. So they asked for an update on that. So we're sort of in that holding pattern over on our side. The Government Oversight Committee has asked for this information, and we'll be getting a report back in April.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our question, I spoke with Representative Mo Terry, the chair of the tax committee, about the OPEGA oversight, and read the materials that were sent out by our clerk. And one of the questions that I had was about what, and I know that there have been discussions about this, but just trying to really get my arms around where this conversation is the collection of data and making sure we're collecting the right data. And I think perhaps to that point, are we asking all the right questions on the application, which my understanding is if there are changes that need to be made to the application, that would need to be done in the legislative process through legislation. And so can you speak to the data that's being collected and whether, because it seems like everything I've read says there's a lot of question marks about whether in fact this program is producing the intended benefits. And there seems to be a real lack of the type of data that's needed. And I understand that part of the application process is, a notarized letter by the business saying, but for this program, right, we would not, et cetera. And so I'm hoping you could speak a little bit to that, that the committee can consider what, if anything, needs to change on that front or action that we ought to take or could consider taking to provide more and better data through the application process or other ways so that we can really get at some of these questions that seem to be lingering about the success and the targeted, fruits of that they're being produced as a part of this program. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for your question. I think you're correct that the OPEGA report did, particularly the first report, highlight some of the issues of insufficient data being collected to properly monitor and evaluate the program, and that there were legislative actions taken to collect more data. I would defer to the department as the administrators of the program to provide you information with what data they are collecting right now and what information, for instance, is on the application. That's not something that we are actively engaged with. They're the program administering the program. They're administering it, and the legislation has taken place. So I think they're in the best position to provide you with information on that question. I don't know if Charlotte is still.
I think Charlotte's back in there, but we'll ask her to come back up here in a moment. Representative Pebworth, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Did you say it was at the February GOC meeting?
Yes, February 26th.
Thank you.
And I thought I heard April as a date that you'd asked the department to respond by. So this month you're expecting a response to those 4 questions?
Yes, correct. So we asked for responses by mid-April, and the GOC meets in April. The first meeting after that request is due is the meeting of the GOC on April 23rd. So tentatively that would potentially be on the GOC schedule for the 23rd, or perhaps the next immediate meeting thereafter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for representatives from OPEGA? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
And let's see, I'm going to ask in the waiting room, that sounded like that was a question. Was that question best directed back to, so that was Representative Bailey. Would that be best directed back to Ms. Mace?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Ms. Breton, if you could invite Ms. Mace back in. Thank you very much, Ms. Mace. Did you hear the question?
I did. Thank you, Senator Curry, and thank you for your question, Representative Bailey. I just wanted to briefly go back to Representative Geiger's question, which was excellent. I have an answer for you now. The 24 million does include the ETIF benefits. About a third of that actually is ETIF benefits. So just wanted to make sure you were answered. So thank you. Representative Bailey, you asked a great question about the data collection. And I think one of the issues is not in the application itself, it's in the tool that the very outdated tool, I would say, the back-end database that we use to do this work. And I think what we need to do is update it so that it's easier for us to extract that data. The data is there, but as you know, extracting the data is only as good as the foundation of that database. So we're working towards a new system. Actually, we had already been working on that prior to the pandemic. So we're committed to getting a newer system, Salesforce, actually in the department, so that we can better extract that data that we all need to measure the things that we want to measure.
Representative Bailey, Representative Geiger, did you have a follow-up on those questions or? No.
I'm happy to defer to Representative Hassenfuss for his question.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just had a follow-up on that, and I was just curious as to when this data would be available. I know that in the OPEGA report it was being worked on, but what's the estimated time frame for when the database will be up and running so that there can be a compilation of information that we could use to make a decision?
Thank you, Representative. That's a great question. I think that we have some goals to get the system up and running before the end of this calendar year. So the end of 2021.
And then how long would it take to analyze that data once the database is up?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I do know that we hope that once the system is up and running, if it's a good system, it should allow us to pull metrics that are in the system. So, but I don't want to commit to a specific date to that.
Ms. Breton, ask if you could go ahead and bring in Ms. Caprara and Mr. Del Greco and Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mace, the data exists. What I heard you say, I think, is that you have the data you need. It's just not in a form that is easily accessible, or does it live on paper somewhere or in spreadsheets, or where is it? How does the data exist at the moment?
That's a great question, Representative Bailey. I think I would go back to something that somebody from OPEGA had said about when they went to do that much deeper dive analysis of all of the data. They realized that the effort to do that would be huge. So the data does exist in this old system that we have, but I think there was a recognition that to pull all that data, and it's not just in our system, it's also Maine Revenue Services. They of course have all of the sort of tax data and the tax credits that actually went out. So it's a multi-departmental effort to pull that data. So.
And Ms. Mays, as I understand it, so we've got multiple agencies working on this, also utilities as well. So there's also a benefit that's partially there that we've got to pull in. Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mace, so coming from a database administrator background, I understand not being able to put a timeline, but I do also understand knowing that you're saying the data is there. So it's exportable and importable for when you're set up. So if the committee was, say, to be looking for some kind of report back that was more up to date, is there a way that you could maybe come back to us with some kind of ballpark date? I mean, has the software been purchased? I mean, I am fully aware of what it takes to get a database up and going and functional, and so that you can extract what you need. I guess we're just really looking for some kind of timeline where we can get some more accurate data.
Yes, Representative Roberts, I think that's a great question, and I appreciate your position as someone who's familiar with databases. I will say that in 2019, and I started with the department in April of 2019, and I remember when I came in, that was one of the first things that I was interested in as a business development person. You need to have a good customer relationship management system, or CRM, to track your clients, so to speak, and communicate with them and keep that data. And as you know, Commissioner Johnson is very, very interested in data and metrics and performance. So we had started the Salesforce process then, and we had spent in 2019 really looking for how it would be implemented in the department and how it might involve tourism and some of the other groups that we have at DECD. And we were poised to implement it very early on in 2020. And I'm loath to use the pandemic question, or excuse again, but that is exactly what happened. We were all very excited to get Salesforce going. We had been working with the Salesforce folks, and then things sort of ground to a halt in very early in March of 2020. So we're very eager to get back at that, and we are getting back to it. And we all very much want this system at DECD.
Okay, just as a follow-up, are you in like has the data been extracted from other agencies and in your other systems? Are you in an importing mode? Like where kind of are you in the process to give the committee a better idea of where? And I know all the intricacies, if there's, if something is abbreviated in one system and not in another, you've got to clean it up, you've got to match it. I understand all of that, just kind of trying to see where you are in the process.
Right, that's such a great question. And I think I would have to defer to the commissioner. I would have to ask her, and I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Del Greco, could you introduce yourself and where you're working and help us to understand kind of the data challenge? Ultimately, I see the committee as trying to check on the return on investment here and just understand the investment and also what the return is. And so what can you help us to understand this?
Sorry, you think I'd have this figured out by now. Thank you, Senator Curry. Again, for those who I didn't meet at the public hearing, my name's Peter Del Greco. I run a nonprofit called Maine and Company, and we work to attract new companies to the state of Maine. I've been with the organization since 2004, which is coincidentally when this program came into being, or at least becoming most widely used. And I think I can shed some light on the data collection, some of the challenges that we've had in the past with it, and some of the ways we've solved some of those challenges. So in 2014, in 2016, in 2018, DECD contracted out with an independent group that does these types of evaluations all across the world. They were headquartered at the time in Boston, and that organization put together another group of kind of a steering committee, which I was honored to be a part of, along with other people from DECD. I believe at the time, Representative Mastracchio and Senator Volk, I think, and but they always had members of the legislature on the review team. And what we learned is the data is being collected. Our companies that are part of this program are very faithful and diligent in turning in all the data. They submit it to Maine Revenue Service. Maine Revenue Service, for privacy reasons, is uncomfortable with sharing it. So what we had to do for those 3 reports that we published, again, the most recent was in 2018, was we had to essentially recreate the data. And we were fairly successful in doing that. Maine Revenue Service eventually gave us some aggregate data, not necessarily individual data, which we were okay with, but it was, Charlotte, Ms. Mace was correct in saying that it wasn't an easy flow through. So we recreated the data, used aggregate data from Maine Revenue Service, and came up with some pretty compelling numbers. We used an internal rate of return as part of how we evaluated the program. And at the time, what we evaluated, I think it was 4 or 5 different programs. The Pine Tree Zone program, I have a couple of notes here. The Pine Tree Zone program, of the 4 programs that were evaluated, clearly had the highest rate of return. And its internal rate of return was 297%. So it was a pretty impressive number. And we did a sensitivity analysis on that 297%. Again, with the idea that there had been questions on the but-for clause of the program. If it turned out that the but-for clause, that every company was I can't think of a better word, but if every company that signed a but-for letter saying that this project would not have gone forward but for these incentives, if it turns out 100% of those companies were lying on their application, the program would have returned, still had an internal rate of return of 8%. If it turned out that 100% of those companies were telling the truth, that's where we got the 297%. And we did that sensitivity analysis at 10% increments. So we think that we're probably, I'd like to think I'm a little bit of an optimist that nobody signs a letter, puts their name onto something if they're not telling the truth. We've done the analysis. We've come up with an internal rate of return that basically says for every dollar we spent on this program, an additional $2.97 was recognized by Maine for each dollar that was spent. So we think that was a pretty good program. And again, it was hard. It was Maine Revenue Service, to their credit, was not willing to share any data that would give out that would violate anyone's privacy. As we talk about the information that OPEGA did, now I'll fully admit I haven't read the 2020 report, but the 2017 report I went through in really fine detail, and it was clear that OPEGA, and they say this, they did not collect any data. They just chose not to. They said it would have been too hard. They did not speak to most of the stakeholders that were marketing the program. They did not speak to the businesses that were using the program. And probably most importantly, they did not find any single example of misuse or abuse of the program. This, if you understand how the program's designed and how it works, you'll see that it is a program that is performance-based. A benefit does not come to a company until after they have done the promised action. So a company can only receive a benefit, any sort of financial benefit, after they have generated revenue for the state. And then the state will share some of that revenue that they generate back with the company. There's no upfront money. It comes a year after they've generated positive results. And if they don't generate positive results, they don't get the benefit back. So it's really a self-regulating program. And I think the numbers, the internal rate of return numbers, support that. That is a very low risk environment for the state.
So Del Greco, what report are you referencing on that?
So and it's on DECD's website. It was from a company called Investment Consulting Associates, Comprehensive Evaluation of Maine's Research and Development and Economic Development Incentive and Investment Programs, January of 2018.
And Ms. Olson, is that something that you've shared with us also? Okay.
It's not, but I will locate it and send it out.
Thank you. Great. Thank
and
you.
Again, we did this report every 2 years. I believe it was because it was statutorily required.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Del Greco, you mentioned the 8% return if we assume that the businesses all would have come to Maine and hired workers in Maine, even if this program were not offered. So how did you arrive at that 8% return if they all would have been here anyways?
It was just the economic growth that was I should apologize. My hand is still up. It was the economic growth that just accompanied the program, that accompanied new business investment anyways. So new economic growth generated new tax revenue. I will fully admit to everybody right here, I was not the mathematician creating and running the models. I'm reading off the chart that was on page. I do have it right here. My apologies. The chart that was on page 33. 'And it goes, 0%, 10%, 20%, up to 100%.
And so then in contrast, the 297 that you have, I'm just trying to see how you, or how they, and you might not be able to answer this, how they factored in that difference so that the business is here, it grows the rest of the economy at 8%. But when it has, the Pine Tree program on it, it then grows the economy more. How does that interaction work?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying the 8% is just, I guess that if you can just explain how the discrepancy comes into play, whereas I will yield to somebody else. I think I just need to do a little bit of digging into actually how they gathered those numbers.
And Representative Hassenfest, and to everyone on here, like I said, we worked really hard on this report. I am more than happy to sit down either individually or Zoom individually or as a group to walk people through it. I also have maintained a good relationship with the primary researcher on this report. I'm sure he would make himself available if you ever wanted to dig into it.
Yeah,
more.
that may be helpful. And this is probably an easier question for you. As part of your tool chest, when you're going out to try to recruit businesses to come to Maine, how is this used as, sort of a way to get businesses to come in? And is it used often, or are there other concerns that businesses have, like maybe healthcare costs or, just infrastructure?
So when a company's making a decision, they've got a ton of criteria, and it depends on the company, the industry, the project, all sorts of things like this. But I would like to refer you, if possible. I pulled testimony from someone gave during the OPEGA report that was done in 2017 or 2018, whenever it was, from someone named Danielle Snow, who led the expansion from a West Coast company called Grand Rounds into Lewiston. They're a healthcare IT company, and she gives really compelling testimony as to how she used the program, how we shared this program with her, and the role it played as she was talking to her board of directors as to why Maine should remain in consideration. I've got a couple things quoted out here. As we began a nationwide search, I convinced my CEO and board of directors that we should review my home state. I apologize, she's originally from Lewiston. While they were skeptical, they encouraged me to see if Maine could compete with the rest of the US. And while doing my research, I was very pleased to find the Pine Tree Zone program. And she's got a lot of other testimony, but one of the comments that I pulled up, make no mistake, without access to this program, the board of directors would not have allowed me to recommend Maine as our place of expansion. Your well-crafted Pine Tree Zone program allowed me to convince my CEO to visit Maine and to take it seriously as a place worthy of consideration. So yeah, it is by far, for companies that are located out of state that want to expand into Maine, that fit the criteria, and every program that we've worked on fits the criteria. And I can tell you that she had offers from 3 other places, and then Maine, from 3 other states, including Maine. And it was the reason that she was able to go to her board and her CEO and say, hey, there's something special here. One of Governor Mills's very first, for lack of a better word, ribbon cuttings was when this company expanded and announced an expansion just before COVID hit. And we got to tour around, all the new investment, all the new hires. And again, as a healthcare IT company, they've played a vital role in helping the nation and their companies deal with this pandemic. So we can see very easily how these types of programs make an impact in a company's decision making. Without this program, we don't have anything comparable.
Thank you, Mr. Del Greco. I think one of the things that my sense of the testimony we've heard today and in the public hearing has been that those who are engaged in it value it very much. The department values it very much, and yourself in recruiting. At the aggregate level, it's hard to say, well, what's been the impact? And I think the committee members are trying to get their heads around that, recognizing the OPEGA report concerns as well. I wanted to check in and ask a question to Ms. Caprara. And you're with MRS, correct? Maine Revenue Service?
Maine State Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, Maine State Chamber of Commerce. I'm terribly sorry. I had that wrong. So what? Then I'll ask the question this way: in terms of the attraction you hear from your member businesses, what are you hearing from them?
I think the Pine Tree Zone is working exactly how it was designed to work. Maine does not have a lot of comprehensive, tax incentive, economic growth programs in the state. This is a premier program. I agree with what Peter said. You should definitely look at that report. I don't have it in front of me, but it did look at the multiplier effect. You have the rate of return information in front of you. You really do. I had testified, and I know that Rachel had provided you some updated information, but you have, the payroll, the number of jobs of Pine Tree Zone eligible workers, 7,000. That's huge. You've got $500 million of qualified investment. Those figures are rate of return. That is what the state is realizing, because for every dollar that, it used to be years ago, for every dollar of worker you bring in, you get 4 to 5, a multiplier effect. So I don't know if that multiplier effect is still the same, but we've used that years ago in determining, the effect of investment. So I think it's huge. Again, Maine does not have a lot in terms of that. This program aligns nicely with the state's, strategic plan. It does align nicely because the state's strategic plan wants to grow the workforce by 75,000, increase wages, and increase value of product. This program targets, 10 sectors that are highly innovative, and the plan targets innovation. They want to increase innovation in the state. And that's really, when you compete in global markets, that's where it's at. You have to be able to constantly innovate and produce products that can meet the needs of the marketplace out there and your customers that are constantly changing. As we know, technology changes. And this program identifies and really targets those 10 sectors. You got environmental technology. A lot of this is entrepreneurship that I think the state wants to attract. They're small businesses, precision manufacturing, biotech. This is what this program targets, and it really aligns nicely with what the state wants to do in growing the economy here in the state. So I think when you're looking at this, you have the rate of return information in front of you. You have it. And I think Rachel had indicated it's over $1 billion. I reported the 2019 information in my testimony because that's all I was able to obtain, and she obtained a little bit more recent information. But you should definitely look at that report. I mean, I think for every job you create, for every dollar of investment, there's always a multiplier effect, and that grows our economy. In particular, it's really going to be important in the next few years because of the pandemic and the fact that our industries here were very heavily tourism industries. And that's going to help us get out of this pandemic and really emerge with a very strong economy. So that's where we stand on this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for any of the panelists? So I'm going to look to Representative Roberts.
Did Representative Bailey have a question first?
Representative Bailey.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the question is for Mr. Del Greco and Ms. Caprara as well, whoever would like to answer, or both. I don't think anyone questions that there's a lot of successful companies who participate in the Pine Tree development zones, and that they add value to our economy, that they create jobs. That I don't think anyone questioned that at all. I think what I'm trying to just grapple with is the expansion of this program beyond actual zones, to really encompassing the state. And the companies, when I look at the list of companies that, participate in the Pine Tree Development Zone program, Tom's of Maine, but for the Pine Tree Development Zones, they wouldn't be in Maine. They wouldn't be expanding in Maine. I think they're owned by perhaps Colgate or some large company that's a very successful billion-dollar industry. But for the Pine Tree Development Zone, Stonewall Kitchen might not be in New York or expand their operations. Again, a very successful company. IDEX, Allagash Brewing, Wayfair. I mean, I'm sure there are incentives around some of these where these programs, incentivize perhaps like a Wayfair to come to Brunswick. I think that campus itself also has other benefits, but I'm just trying to understand if this is being used. This program is actually being used as efficiently as it should be, and even for those larger corporations that create jobs, I mean, there may be smart and strategic incentives and tax expenditures we could have in place in programs to, encourage growth in those industries. I'm just trying to grapple with, is this sort of catch-all program for all who want to participate the right way to go about doing economic development and job creation and supporting our business community, and also sort of grappling with this question of we've already discussed and heard from the executive branch around data and being able to pull data and report and show, so that we don't have this lingering question in there. Is like, well, we think it's successful. It seems like it really is. There's a strong return on investment. The companies that participate in this create jobs and, feed the Maine economy and rah, rah, rah. So that's what I'm trying to understand. I'm just curious what I know it's a lot there, but curious.
Bailey, who was your question to?
Both Ms. Caprera and Doug Reck.
Go ahead, Ms. Caprera.
I think that to answer your question about the expansion of this program started off as a small program to really focus on the Northern Maine issue that had happened way back with the Bowater and the Great Northern Paper, the closure of that mill. But quickly, legislators at the time saw this was gaining success and wanted it in their districts. That is why the program was expanded across the state, literally, almost, because legislators wanted this available in their districts to be able to attract capital and investment to their areas. And this was overwhelmingly voted in the House. I think I had it in my testimony, 142, I think, to 0. And there was a few absent, but this really was overwhelmingly voted in because legislators couldn't wait to get it in their specific areas.
And if I can,
Mr. Del Greco, go ahead.
My apologies. If I'm allowed to add to that, it was, when it was first put in, I mean, it had those specific zones. It was expanded to deal with the Great Recession of 2008, 9, 10, whatever we decide that. After that expired, then it was pulled back a little bit, but not necessarily to the specific zone. So the way it works now is every county, any investment in any county counts, except for investments into York and Cumberland counties, our two wealthiest counties, and frankly, the two with the highest wage thresholds to meet. And that's also, and I should apologize, that's something else we haven't mentioned, that not every job created counts for this. They've got to meet that wage threshold, and that wage threshold is by county. So in York and Cumberland counties, they use information from the federal government. I assume it's from the Census Bureau, to look at unemployment information, and then only those individual municipalities within York and Cumberland counties that have higher unemployment rates are allowed into the program. So every year, as the practitioners, Charlotte and I have to look and say, all right, January 1, which communities are going to be in, which ones, aren't going to be in. January 1, we have to say, all right, now what's the new wage going to be? And that's the other thing, is it encourages companies every year. The wage threshold goes up because, if for nothing else than inflation and cost of living, that wage threshold's going up and the company doesn't, they could have people that qualified for it one year, not qualified for the next year because wages went up. And then they got to make the decision, do we increase the wage or do we lose the benefit? So it's pretty, focused on helping companies identify those types of things. But I do want to say it is not available everywhere in the state anymore. That was for a couple year period. It is available everywhere that's not York and Cumberland counties. And then York and Cumberland counties, only the places with higher than average unemployment issues. Does that help, Representative Bailey?
Some, yes, thank you.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we have received a lot more information today. Seems like we've got a couple more reports to pour over. I also think it would be kind of imperative to, if Ms. Mace could get an answer to us about when we could maybe expect some current data on the program. All that being said, for the committee's further consideration of this bill, I'd like to make a motion that we table this.
Motion to table. Is there a second? Second, Representative Hassenfuss, Senator Searway. So it's been moved and tabled. All those in favor of tabling, please raise your hand. Can we raise hands on tabling? I think we can. We just did. So, okay. So, all right. So we have tabled this bill. I'm going to say thank you to our guests for coming in today. And Ms. Breton is going to show you the door, I guess. I'm sorry. Move you back into the attendee list. That's the last item on our agenda today. We have so that is tabled, and that closes the work session on LD 730. Ms. Olson, do you have any language review for us to look at before we close?
No.
Okay, just making sure. Just making sure. I wasn't sure what we'd had. So, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I believe Representative Pebworth has her hand up.
Sorry, I missed your hand. Representative Pebworth.
Thank you. I was just asking a quick question about the workload going forward. If you can give us a sense of where we are with our work at hand.
I think our calendar is starting to. We had a big day scheduled on the day that we went into session, so we are putting that in. We don't have a plan to add another day at this point. But I certainly think you can expect to have some days that go into the afternoons in a stronger way. Right now, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're not at a place where we're adding a third day at this point, but it's kind of a moving target, especially as we see items coming out of revisers. We just haven't. I expected to see more and we didn't. So coming out of the revisor's office just recently, when it does, we'll be scheduling it.
And we have broken up the days as far as a 9:30 and a 1 o'clock time slots, so that and we will, I have heard members' concerns as far as taking breaks, and I believe Senator Curry has as well. So things will be divided up a little, so we won't have sponsors waiting in the morning for a bill in the afternoon as well.
Try very hard to do that. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? And a second. All those in favor, go by hand. Welcome, Representative Bernard, and goodbye. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.